We're joined from Cairo by Mr. Mohamed Osman, an international relations specialist. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, first let's start off by asking, how might Netanyahu's push for advanced weaponry, including bunker buster bombs, influence the Israeli military preparations when it comes to Iran with faltering diplomacy?
Thank you again for having me. Rehan, greetings to you and to your dear audience. Of course, right now it seems that Netanyahu is heading for a second time to the White House within less than 90 days in order, of course, to take full advantage of the apparent unconditional support the administration of President Trump is providing for Netanyahu's government and its Middle East policy, especially with regards to the situation in the Gaza Strip and also with regards to a potential escalation with Iran. And this brings me to your question. It seems that negotiations between the United States and Iran, or the diplomatic process itself, has reached an impasse. The United States is insisting on direct bilateral negotiations with Iran that would result in significant Iranian concessions with regards to its nuclear program, its missile program, and its relation with its proxies in the region. And on the other hand, Iran insists on indirect negotiations and dismisses U.S. threats. And for the first time, the United States is openly saying that if an agreement is not reached, they might actually resort to deploying or employing military force against Iran. And this is what, of course, causing extreme jubilation in Tel Aviv and in Netanyahu's government.
But sir, do you think that this could possibly just be, a negotiation tactic that Trump has used in the past, but basically threatening the other person or the other country, like Iran, in this instance, and using it as a way to leverage some sort of concession or a deal?
It very much could
anti-threats,
be.
though.
Yes, it very much could be, but I would not go as far as calling them empty threats, because what we are seeing on the ground, I am no military expert, but I have heard many military experts, and we all have two eyes and we can see the mobilization of military assets by the United States in the region is unprecedented. Since Operation Desert Storm in 1991, we are seeing huge military assets that are being mobilized in the Middle East and also in the vicinity of the Middle East, for example, in the base of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, as well as American bases in the Gulf region. And of course, the American fleet's 3 aircraft carriers have headed to the region, 35 military ships, strategic bombers. So no, this mobilization costs billions of dollars. So I do not think that the U.S. is just issuing empty threats. No, they might actually resort to attacking Iran. But of course, conventional wisdom dictates that Iran, given this demonstration of force by the United States, might be more willing to engage in negotiations. And I believe this is probably what will happen in the end. But maybe in a few weeks, we will find some sort of negotiation and some sort of settlement where Iran can negotiate lesser concessions it can give. However, Netanyahu's visit to Washington is basically to prevent that from happening with regards to Iran. Netanyahu is saying, since ever, that negotiations in Iran will lead nowhere, and that the military solution is the best option, and Israel is pushing for a military escalation. So Netanyahu is trying to influence Trump's negotiating position to ensure that the American negotiating position is maximalist, that it will include the complete elimination of the Iranian nuclear program, which of course is unrealistic, which will eventually lead to conflict. And this is what the Israelis want. Is this necessarily what the Americans want? Not necessarily. I think the Trump administration would lean more towards a diplomatic settlement that will make it avoid a war with Iran. And of course, let's not forget a war with Iran will have disastrous consequences on the region, on regional stability. It will cause a regional war. It will devastate the world economy. The prices of oil will jump to over $300 and $400 per barrel if that happens. So of course, this is a catastrophe that nobody wants, not even the United States. But of course, given someone as Netanyahu and the very self-centered approach of the Israeli government that they are willing to for the interest of their own geostrategic and security interests, they are willing to put the entire world and global stability in jeopardy, unfortunately.
Okay, Mr. Mohamed Osman, if you'd hold on with us, we're joined again now by Mr. Ibrahim Al-Darawi, writer and political analyst. Thank you for joining us here on Think Tank. And let me ask you a question now. Could Trump's focus on securing the release of Israeli detainees shift the US pressure on Netanyahu towards de-escalation in Gaza or further entrench the conflict?
In the outset, we should to affirm that calling Trump to Netanyahu, I think there is something new regarding to the implementing the detainees swap, particularly after Cairo proposed several proposals to execute the deal, and also following the blatant refusal of the process of displacement, either in Sinai or outside Palestine, as Israel wishes. By this image, I think that we are heading in the upcoming period on the clarity of the vision with regard to the American side regarding what's happening in the occupied Palestinian territories, and also in the United States. I think there is a very great dilemma suffered by the President Trump due to the demonstrations within America. So the process of calling upon Netanyahu, no one knows why that speech, the following the phone call between President Al-Sisi and Trump, and we all know that the Palestinian cause is a great Egyptian concern. Cairo is shouldering the entry of the eight executing the swap as well as the reconstruction of Gaza. All these determined for Cairo, and I think USA is dealing with Cairo as a very important partner in the Middle East and has a clear vision regarding the Palestinian cause. And yet the clear vision for the international community is Cairo, which is a hard number of the equation between Palestine and Israel. And everyone is listening to the Egyptian vision. Now we are waiting for the execution from USA, number one. Number two, from Netanyahu. What's happening in Gaza Strip in this time is very shameful for USA administration and the international community, as USA administration claimed in Trump due the election campaigns to take the voices of the Arabs, talked about if he would have been in the office, wouldn't have reached that phase of the bloodshed of the Palestinians, and now there is a collective hungering and a genocide of the Palestinian people in light of the Trumps in office. And unfortunately, the US administration is helping Israel given the destructive weapons for the Palestinian people. And I think following the calls between Egypt and Trump having a great headline, which is non-displacement and the not to liquidate the Palestinian cause, and the establishment of the Jewish Israeli state on the rebels of the Palestinian cause. So we have the Egyptian initiative coming from societal context and Arab consensus, along with the rapprochement of the international community. And we have in particular the visit of France Macron for a bid of the ceasefire, the executing the swap deal, and the urgent matter, which is an urgent matter, along with the reconstruction and the radical solution of the Palestinian cause. Such a proposal, Egypt is presented before the international community and the U.S. administration, but we're still waiting for Trump's Netanyahu's meeting along with the U.S. administration, surprisingly pressuring Netanyahu for the ceasefire and the deal of the swaps. I think the message from within Israel, I think that received by the U.S. administration upon such a request, let me say that this summon came because of what happened by Trump, and as the visit wasn't coordinated previously, and it was surprisingly taking place by U.S. administration to Netanyahu to come to Washington carrying 3 files before President Trump.
Okay. Mr. Darawi, if we could also get Mr. Osman's opinion when it comes to the Netanyahu visit. Now, you've made it clear that the Israeli relations, U.S.-Israeli relations, are on point when it comes to the Gaza situation. But Mr. Osman, now, do you believe, given the many economic policies that Trump has taken, that this could signify a turning point when it comes to the U.S.-Israeli relations, especially regarding the economic aspect of it, and a potential preemptive military action against Iran, as this is one of the main talking points that they're about to discuss in this visit?
Well, of course, one of the main subjects that will be subject to discussion during the second Trump-Netanyahu summit is the tariffs that were imposed by the United States on Israel. But of course, let's not get worked up about this, because we cannot see that this is a turning point in Israeli-U.S. relations, because the United States basically imposed tariffs on 185 out of about 195 countries in the world. So the vast majority of the nations of the world, including core U.S. allies everywhere around the world, including Japan, including South Korea, including the entirety of the European Union, Australia, and whatnot, Canada, before the imposition of the mass imposition of tariffs, everyone was subjected to these measures. Israel, of course, was subjected to a 17% tariff, and interestingly enough, a couple of days before the tariffs were imposed on the entirety of planet Earth by President Trump, including penguins on some Australian islands. Israelis have removed all tariffs on U.S. imports to Israel in order to avoid U.S. tariffs. However, this did not spare them from Trump's tariff. However, I expect that they might negotiate a tariff alleviation among one another. That the Israelis will make it clear that they have removed the tariffs. But of course, the deep relationship between the United States and Israel is an organic relationship. It goes way beyond.
Well, yeah, I mean, doesn't the U.S. sort of, provide Israel with not just, arms, but they also provide them with aid to fund various government organizations, including the Israeli army itself. This offsets this, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. They provide them annually with billions of dollars in aid, whether military or even civilian. So let's not pretend that this is changing anything, because sometimes we in the media and analysts get overworked and overhyped and think and indulge in wishful thinking. Oh, he imposed the tariff, this is the end of Israel. This is nonsense. Of course, it's not true. The Israelis and the Americans, unfortunately, their alliance is set in stone. Israel is a strategic asset for the United States, and the United States has a vested interest in investing in the absolute supremacy of Israel in the region, unfortunately. And this is something that we have to contend with. And this brings us to the subject of Iran. The United States, this is a president. President Trump is a president who was elected on a foreign policy platform that advocated peace. He is willing to make peace, for example, in Ukraine on the expense of European security. Yet, he is always willing to make an exception for Israel. The United States is waging war in Yemen right now.
Yes, on
We,
Israel's
we,
behalf, basically.
Exactly, and they are threatening a regional war with Iran, and this could be the most violent war in the history of the Middle East if it happens. So this shows you the deep and why is Trump doing this? To ensure the security of Israel and to cater to the security interests of Israel that require the elimination of the so-called Iranian threat, even though Iran has been substantially weakened by what happened since the 7th of October, especially with the defeat of Hezbollah and the weakening of
Yeah.
Hamas and the fall of the regime of Bashar al-Assad. Yet for the Israelis, that's not enough. They
Which
want
kind of
absolute
brings
dominance.
the same idea, well, brings up the next topic. The Israeli defense minister claims that he found, or they found, a document proving that Iran had funded Hamas on the 7th of October attacks. Does this affect the agenda of the meetings itself? And will these allegations be brought up with Trump? And will there be actionable things done with these allegations?
So this brings me to the answer of your first question, Reham. It's the timing of releasing these documents. Of course, we cannot verify the veracity or the authenticity of these documents. However, it contains very dangerous claims. It links Iran directly to the 7th of October attacks. And of course, this will be used by Netanyahu in front of Trump to tell him, see, the Iranians are no good. You cannot go into a deal with these people. Those people are directly responsible for the 7th of October attack on Israel that caused the deaths of 1,200 Israelis and blah, 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 blah. And of course, so we have to go to war with them and we have to bomb their nuclear reactors. This is basically Israel trying to manipulate its way into the United States into a war with Israel. And the timely release of these documents that could be very well false, by the way, they could be forged by the Israeli intelligence. But of course, this doesn't matter. At the end of the day, facts have become very circumstantial when it comes to U.S. policy in the region. And unfortunately, I see that the release of these so-called documents, alleged documents, of course, the timing is very peculiar, if you ask me.
If we could get Mr. Darawi's opinion on this as well. Mr. Darawi, with Iran's nuclear program at the forefront of the summit agenda, does this meeting risk escalating the tensions into a wider regional conflict rather than fostering diplomatic solutions? Mr. Osman said that there is a possible risk that this could happen because it seems like there's a lot of U.S. naval movement within this region as well related to Iran.
I think that the Iranian nuclear file for Trump is very sticky, and I think the U.S. administration in this time is not creating any problematic issues with Iran unless through negotiation, and that we found by the EU countries which cooperated with America under Biden regarding the Iranian dossier. And I think there are some to advise Trump in this time not to do anything that would create issues to threaten the Middle East and the international community. And I think Israel has a great dilemma that calling upon the Americans to harshly to deal with Iran in light under the Trump's administration. Unfortunately, what is taking place in the Middle East is at stake, and U.S. administration is a great loser in this time following in the extermination of Gaza and its people. The U.S. administration never managed to displace the Palestinians, so the process of displacement went into fiasco, and they make the regional visit to execute this matter, and we have a clear vision on how to tackle the Iranian nuclear file in the Middle East, particularly the Arab countries and the foreign countries. There is no some sort of hostilities by the Gulf countries, for example, and we've seen that Iran that lifted its hand from the Houthis in Yemen, and I think this for Iran would give a green line that as Iran never wished to engage with clashes by USA and Israel, particularly following Israel hit Hezbollah, along with Hamas in Gaza. All this matter makes Iran to step back a few steps and deal based on diplomacy and politics. But
Yes.
Iran wished also to strengthen
Sir,
their muscles for USA and its force
I
to
apologize. I
wish
have to
have a
cut you off there
crisis.
because we're out of time. I apologize, but I have to cut you off there. That was Mr. Mohamed Osman, an international relations specialist. Thank you so much for joining us. And Mr. Ibrahim Al-Darawi, a writer and political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you both for your insights.